Welcome to the 2020 Monumental Moments Cemetery Tour. This video is brought to you by a collaboration between the City of Hillsboro, TVCTV, and the Hillsboro Historical Society. Every other fall, we come together to present a living history tour at the Hillsboro Pioneer Cemetery, where some of the earliest residents of this city are now at rest. For each tour, the Historical Society chooses a group of burials and compiles life stories about those people, based on local historical and genealogical research. Normally, visitors would come and walk through the graveyard, while actors dressed in period clothing would present monologues at each grave. Sadly, however, we could not do the tour in person this year due to COVID-19. So, for the first time ever, Monumental Moments will be presented as a video series. For our latest tour, we focused on the road to Hillsboro, how people that came to America in different ways all ended up making a final home in this city. Immigrants in the 19th century came to America from many different countries, classes, religions, and traditions. They all dreamt of owning land and being free to prosper and make their own fate. Each video in this series presents two of those early travelers who came to settle in the Hillsboro area. This time on Monumental Moments.
Hello, my name is Gus Waring. Do you need a new hat or shoes for work? How about some fabric or ribbons for the ladies? You are in luck. My family owns the largest mercantile in the county, H. Waring & Sons, located right on Main Street here in Hillsboro. Maybe you've heard of my parents, Henry and Mary Catherine Waring. They are well-respected early settlers here, and my father became a prominent businessman. Papa was born in France in 1828 and learned carpentry. As a young man, he came to America. He heard about gold in California, and soon he realized that not all gold is in the ground. He saw a need to replace the furniture left behind from the people who came over on the overland routes. He moved north to the Willamette area, took a donation land grant in Hillsboro. He planted wheat, hired out as a carpenter, opened cabinet shop, did so well 2 years later he won a bid to build the courthouse. A couple years after that, he built a Twalton Hotel with lumber he dressed himself. With Mother's help, they ran the hotel. A year later, he closed the shop and volunteered in the Yakima Indian Wars from 1855 to 1858. When he returned, my parents ran the hotel and Papa resumed cabinetry. Mom planted locust tree. Papa said it was to keep her from having to look at the new tavern. From 58 to 62, two sisters, Charlotte and Mary Catherine, and brother William were born. I came a year later. Guests enjoyed knowing that William was born in the hotel. We had a good childhood, school, played in the countryside, fished, hunted, attended church. We even went to the Hillsboro High School. We worked hard on the farm. William and I would go to school in the fall and spring and worked in the farm on the summer. My sisters, they went to school and they worked at home, in the hotel, and in the store when it was busy. They grew up to be well-mannered Christian ladies just like Mom. Charlotte married George Patterson. He was a carpenter. Mary Catherine married David Corwin, the owner of a meat market. William and I learned Father's trade. From an early age, we watched Papa's deals. Naturally, we became almost more skilled than Papa in woodworking, business, and civic duties. In '82, Father's small carpentry shop became too busy and demands for goods too big. We expanded, H. Waring & Sons, built a large store with tools, clothing, even liniment cure-alls. The family has been very busy over the years. Parents became important and had far-reaching influence. Papa's enthusiasm and enterprising were so contagious, many businessmen sought his advice. That left a large legacy for us to live up to. When I was a young man, I married the love of my life, beautiful Nellie Stewart. Sadly, she died at the tender age of 30. I was too heartbroken to ever marry again. Since my siblings had families, I felt it was my duty to take care of my parents, and I focused on the family farm and running the store. My brother William was ahead of the business for many years, but his interest shifted to banking and politics. He and my father held city offices and worked hard to improve Hillsboro. William now serves on the Oregon Senate and the Oregon State Board of Agriculture. Well, I'd better get back to the store and fill some orders. The day is wasting and Mother never could abide having idle hands. Come by our shop and stock up on supplies next time you come through town. Be happy to see you.
Keep watching to learn about another Hillsboro resident from the past.
Yes, would to God I while on the lowest branch a bud uncloses, a bud uncloses to touch you, Queen. Nay, since you will not love what I were growing, a happy daisy in the garden path, but so your silver foot might press me going, might press me going, even unto death.
All my life, I've been told that gold dust runs through my veins. My name is Catherine Schulmerich Burkhalter, and I'm here today to tell you the story of my amazing parents, Conrad and Margaret Schulmerich. My father was a gold rusher, you see, one man among thousands who left their lives in Europe to pursue the ultimate dream. Papa had seen much poverty in Germany. After being conscripted into the army and serving for 2 years, he became disheartened by military life and his lack of prospects. One day in 1850, he took a huge risk and jumped off the end of a dock right onto an immigrant ship bound for New York. Normally, the captain would have arrested stowaways, but he took pity on my father and put him to work on the ship, and that is how he made it to America. Papa used to say that that one leap of faith paved the way for the entire future of our family. But life in New York was no walk in the park. Papa was working on the clock and desperately wanted to get to the West Coast and start panning for nuggets. It took 6 years working as a farmhand in New York to save enough money to leave for California. Well, as fate would have it, right at that time in 1856, my 18-year-old mother, Margaretina Schnetzer, stepped off another immigrant ship from Europe. Born in Bavaria, her parents had owned a linen mill, but tragically they both passed away when her and her sister were very young. The years were difficult, and a new life in America seemed to be my mother's only chance. The German Mission Church in New York knew that my father needed a wife, so they were quick to introduce the two as soon as she arrived. One day, Margaretina Schnetzer stepped off the boat. The second day, she became Mrs. Conrad Schulmerich. On the third day, the brand new couple boarded a ship for Panama. It took about 3 months, but they finally made it to California and bought a gold claim on Weaver Creek, just northwest of Placerville. Now, you might think Papa's dream had come true at this point. He'd made it to the gold fields, but not yet. Now they would have to build a homestead from scratch and start the back-breaking work of panning for gold. Home was a small cabin using sluice boxes for a makeshift table and bed. Papa worked double shifts at the mine and over time began finding tiny little flecks and small chunks of gold. Mother handled laundry duties for the miners and finally saved enough to buy a cook stove, which would become the backbone of their survival. As they worked their claim over the next 19 years, my siblings started arriving. I was the 6th of 8 born in California. I remember Mama taking care of us, growing vegetables in the garden, and of course hiring herself out to do laundry and cooking for the camp miners. We were given chores to help at home too. Mama would say, "Many hands make light work for all." Eventually, in 1875, my parents sold our mine on Weaver Creek, and we traveled up the Pacific coast into Oregon country. We stayed at Portland at a waterfront hotel for a short time, and Papa finally found a clear section of land just 4 miles south of Hillsboro. We moved in on August 9th, 1875. Our new home had hand-honed timbers and a long porch stretching across the front. There were plenty of rooms, which was handy because Mother would have 3 more children. So there was 11 of us in total. It was chaotic, but we had an abundance of love. Almost right away, Papa became a respected local businessman. He was elected to be county commissioner and helped plant the famous John Porter redwood trees at the courthouse in Hillsboro. Most importantly, my parents opened Schulmerich & Sons Mercantile, taking out regular advertisements in the Argus newspaper and selling quality goods all over the state. My brother Herman caught Papa's gold fever and bought a mining claim in Sumter, Oregon in the late 1890s. I, of course, married my husband, Daniel Burkhalter, and we own a dairy in Farmington. Now, the local doctor often had to travel to farms on a regular basis, so people would call my mother to midwife in his absence. Having given birth to 11 children made her quite the expert. She became just as well respected as my father was a businessman in the county. While their marriage started as one of convenience, hard work and family bonded my parents more than anyone could ever know. Mama survived to see the new century, but passed after a long illness early that February 1900. Papa began to decline soon after and joined her only a year later, in the summer of 1901. My sisters and I are convinced that Papa died of a broken heart, sitting in his favorite chair, thinking of all the memories that he had shared with her and the legacy of blood and gold dust they would leave behind.
Thank you for watching this episode of Monumental Moments. Before we go, it is important to acknowledge that the people buried at the Hillsboro Pioneer Cemetery mostly represent European settlers who came to Oregon after 1840. We know that our choices were limited to the ethnicities within this cemetery, but we always want to remember and honor all the distinct groups that have inhabited this region, from the incredible Kalapuyan tribes that lived here for hundreds of generations to the many cultures that make up the diverse international urban sprawl that we reside in today. Every single person has a different life story, but learning about one another and connecting to our shared past reminds us that we may not be so different after all. Stay tuned for the next episode of All Roads Lead to Hillsboro.
Me gliding by so cold, while so